All right, let's call the meeting to order then. We need to start with the roll call. Oh, I'm sorry, before we even do that, I need to read this statement. In accordance with the Governor's disaster declaration and suspension of certain aspects of the Open Meetings Act, this meeting is being held virtually via Zoom. The public was invited to provide input via email before the meeting. The Zoom information was published with the agenda, so members of the public may attend the meeting virtually and provide input. Okay, let's start with roll call.
We can't hear you, Heather Ann.
Okay, hold on one moment.
Now we can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Salmon.
Here?
Ms. Bex.
I'm here.
Ms. Headland.
Here.
Mr. Miller. Mr. Modica.
Here.
Ms. Orcherton.
I'm here.
Mr. Pania. Ms. Williams.
Here.
And Mr. Robinson.
Here.
All right.
Heather Ann, just wanted to check. I didn't actually hear Gonzalo, but did you hear that he is present?
I did. I saw
Okay,
him
good.
waving.
Great.
Okay, let's go ahead then and move to approval of minutes of the previous meeting. Anybody have any questions or comments?
No questions or comments.
Okay, I move that we approve these minutes. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we do have to do a roll call because this is Zoom. So we'll do a roll call vote on this.
Okay, please answer your aye or nay. Ms. Salmon.
Aye.
Ms. Bex.
Aye.
Ms. Headland.
Aye.
Mr. Modica.
Aye.
Ms. Orcherton.
Aye.
Mr. Pania.
Aye.
Ms. Williams.
Aye.
And Mr. Robinson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller has also joined us.
Mr. Miller
all
is
right.
there. Thank you.
Hi, Jared.
And
Just
I
voted
and I
on
will
the
add my aye vote to approve the minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do we have any additions or changes to the agenda?
We do. Your agenda indicates that there are 3 grant presentations, and both Rob Crum of CU Folk and Roots and Kelly White of 40 North Champaign County Arts Council are moving their final reports to a later month, most likely our December meeting. So we will hear in terms of 2020 grant presentations from Lauren Chambers of the Urbana Free Library this evening.
Okay, and do we have any public input? No? Okay. All right, let's go ahead then with the grant presentation from Lauren Chambers of the Urbana Free Library, who's going to present on the 2020 Urbana Arts Grant Story Walk in Urbana Parks.
Hi. Thank you guys for having me today. If you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, if that's all right. And there we go. Okay. So I think you should all be seeing something that says Story Walk in Urbana Parks. I just want to make sure I picked the right screen.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just going to go over a very brief summary of the project. And then I am going to show you some of the stories that were submitted as part of the Story Walk and that people saw in the Story Walk. So we were very lucky for this project with the pandemic, since it was already planned to be outside. We did have to make adjustments, but not quite as many as perhaps some of the other art grants recipients. So we were able to still go to 7 different parks in Urbana and show our story walks. We had planned originally to partner with the Park District to go to one of their art camps. And actually at the art camp have people make stories, so we would have those to share in the story walks as well. Of course, unfortunately, the art camps were unfortunately canceled. So instead, what we did is we brought in an author and illustrator who led a virtual workshop on how to make very short stories, because we wanted to make this easy for people. So we asked people to do like 3 to 5 page stories for all ages. So our artist was very good. She walked people through how to, even if you don't think you can draw, how you can use basic shapes to make images, and then also how to set up very easy storylines that might just be about things that you do during your day. So we did the workshop, we had the story walks, and then we also did virtual walkthroughs of all of our story walks and posted those online so that people who weren't able to go out would still be able to participate. And we left the length of time when people could submit stories to basically the entire time we were doing the story walks, in case someone saw this, the story walk and decided they wanted to participate. And then the other thing we did is, so story walks originally were going to be part of events that the park district was doing. So play days in the park, things like that. And there were already going to be a crowd of people there. So we were going to have art supplies out so that people could make stories while they were there. Since we weren't able to do that, what we did is we put together art kits that included paper, some basic drawing supplies, so that in case that was a barrier for anyone making their story, they'd be able to pick up some of those art supplies that they might need so they could make a story. We didn't have quite as many people pick those up as we hoped, but this shows you just an overview of the numbers. So 17 people came to that virtual workshop, 110 people that we know of came to all the parks. We had people leave a leaf in a box, and that's how we counted how many people went through. But of course, if people didn't leave a leaf in the box, then we weren't able to count them. And then we had 8 stories submitted, 38 virtual story walk views so far, although that is still up on our Facebook page so that people can still see them. And then we had 3 arts kits that were collected. So now to the more fun part of the presentation. I've just picked 2 of the stories that were submitted to us to give you an idea of some of the stories that, that came, how creative people were, and also a variety of the styles, because these are 2 very different styles for stories. And these were both some of our younger participants who sent us some stories. So I'm going to leave this up for a bit just so everyone can take a look at the pages. If everyone's ready, I'll go to the next ones. So that was one of them. And then this is another story we got, which I have to admit, when I first got this, my initial reaction was, oh my goodness, so cute. So again, it's very short, but we kind of set it up like that on purpose so that people who were worried that they wouldn't be able to do a long story could submit something like this and still encourage them to be creative and to realize that you can make your own story. It doesn't have to be long and involved, that it could be something very short. And I was at most of the story walks either setting it up or taking things down, and I can tell you there were a number of times where the story walk was actually up later because people kept coming through and bringing their family and going through and reading them. I was out till one park until it was almost dark because we had them up from about 12 to 7 in all of the parks. And people they'd ask us about the project, and then they'd thank us for bringing it to their park and walking them through. And it wasn't uncommon to have a family say, we could go home and make a story like this if you want to, talking to their little one.
Yes.
So does anyone have questions about what we did?
Well, I think it was a great program. Do you think you'll be doing this again perhaps next year?
There is a possibility we could do something like this again next year. It was a lot of fun to put together. I think now that we've done it once, we have a better idea of how to send out submissions to get artwork, because that was the biggest difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
I might say for the project is just making sure that people heard about it and encouraging people to submit art. But this is something that we could, and this was a partnership with the park district. We did this with them. We had permission from them to put things up in the park. A couple of times they came and helped us, set things out. They helped us promote it. They were very, very good partners. But I'd be more than happy to work with them again on something like this.
Very good. Does anybody else have questions or comments?
Frank, you go ahead first, and then I have a comment too.
And I will stop sharing.
You mentioned in terms of social media exposure, the Facebook for the library. Are there other social media venues that you've considered or you've used for publicizing it?
Yes, we put it in our newsletter. The park district also helps send things out. We put things in, we submitted press releases to different venues. I went on CI Living and talked about it. And then we made sure it was also on a number of community calendars around town. I know it was on Shavana Moms. So we tried to get the word out quite a bit about this. And it was right after, in late summer, that we were doing this and getting the word out about it.
Now, is this something that also Instagram and Twitter, is that an option for publicizing and getting the information out?
Mm-hmm. The library has an Instagram account and a Twitter account, though I have to say we tend to see a little more reaction on Facebook than we do on two of those others. We're building those up more. But we tried to publicize it far and wide on our accounts, as well as we had posters up in the library about it. We had the program to help encourage people to make their own stories so that they could learn how, and we also publicized that too.
Lauren, I remember learning about Storywalk as a national or even international program. And I recall seeing Urbana mentioned, because of your work on this project, in I think something that focused on Illinois or otherwise focused on the region of the Midwest and Storywalk. So I'm just curious, like, if this gave us an opportunity to, did you see Urbana be listed anywhere where Storywalks appear or things like that, that we could grow into the future? I understand, and I really value that ours also focused on young people making stories and people who've never made stories before making them. And I also have seen Storywalk obviously involved like children's book published authors and other people doing the Storywalk. So as you're considering it for future years, that might be an interesting opportunity for partnering like an established illustrator with a young person, maybe to work together or something like that. And I was curious, like what networking you've done with the broader Storywalk program.
I like that idea, connecting people maybe with an illustrator. What
Future Arts Grant.
Thank you. What ended up happening was a lot of libraries were looking for ideas for things that they could do outdoors. And so we were included in an article about Storywalks and different things that libraries were doing or places were doing for Storywalks, because ours is a little unusual since we aren't just taking a known picture book and putting the pages up, since we were having people make their own. But it did get us a little bit of networking opportunities, because I did have a couple people reach out and ask us about the workshop and how the workshop went, and then how we were kind of planning our story walk, some other libraries reached out.
Yeah, and I was thinking of this in particular because I know the library and the Park District are both such influential partners on Read Across America. And so as we're entering into another year where we don't know the landscape with the pandemic, I could definitely see some interesting growth around Storywalk and maybe connecting it to Read Across America, where sometimes not just the hearing of stories, but creating stories becomes part of what goes on at that festival.
I'm on that planning committee for Read Across America, and we are going through a couple possible ideas right now. Maybe something related to Storywalk. I don't want to say anything more since we don't have anything out.
Yeah, I think more and more these kind of opportunities to encounter art when you're out and about, since we may very likely be in the same circumstance for a while with COVID-19, is just really, I was so pleased that this program was able to go off without a lot of hurdles, as you said. So thank you for your work.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you guys for funding our project. We greatly appreciate being able to bring this to the community because of the arts grant.
One other question. I know that there are a number of children's authors locally, and was there any input or any participation from any of the local children's authors or other authors besides people just joining in?
Rachel and I did have a conversation at one point that if we did not have a lot of people expressing an interest in submitting their own artwork, that we would perhaps reach out to some of the local authors to see if we could use some of their books in a story walk. And if we were going to go picture book authors, we were specifically looking at trying to highlight some more local picture book authors.
Well, our very own Stacy Robinson has participated in the Children's Literary Festival and obviously has published graphic novels. I definitely think, that might be an interesting opportunity for the future. So as you're thinking about future collaborations, certainly give some thought to possibly creating some sort of like mentorship opportunity out of it, because I could even see during our current constraints around COVID, that being something that could be done either in collaboration with the schools or in collaboration like Zoom-based programming, things like that.
Thank you. I'm actually writing that down right now.
Very good.
I did too.
Thank you. I wasn't sure. I was like, should I say something? Should I not say something?
Stacey, yes, you should say something about the Children's Lit Festival.
I am so anxious by this. I don't want my, I know these are proposals and we're thinking about that, but I wanted to keep it kind of professional. But I was so amped by this. I'm like, so I'm volunteering. My other friend and mentee, Kofi Brazell Smith. I'm thinking about this. I would love to have a more extended conversation around this. I have so many questions. I didn't see the first slide. Well, I did see the first slide, but I couldn't remember. How many participants did you have?
We had 110 people who put a leaf in the box for the story walk. 38 people here. I will put this back up.
Thank you.
Because that'll make it a little bit easier. And forgive me, you're going to get it like this.
Awesome, yeah.
But 17 people who came to the workshop, 38 people who came to did the virtual story walk, and then 8 stories submitted and 3 of the art kits picked up. And I think if we tried to do something like the workshop again, the workshop was right at the beginning of virtual programs when people were just starting to learn about them, that we might get an even bigger response if we were to do something now or in the future.
And Lauren, I would advise you to consider Young Artist Studio for a potential venue, since we already do that in partnership with the library, and we could have them create stories at the workshop there too. Stacy, go ahead, keep going.
No.
You want to say anything else?
I want to be involved in this. That's what I was
saying. Yay.
Great.
That's good to know.
Yeah, we should definitely talk about this. I have a lot more questions I don't want to take up time with here, but definitely let's talk.
Good, yeah, let me know when.
Thank you so much, Lauren.
Okay.
Round of applause.
Thank you all so much.
Okay, let's go ahead and have the staff report from Rachel now.
All right, folks, let me pull up my presentation. Okay, got my Zoom bar like totally in my way. Hold on one second. Okay, this is your November staff report. And let me begin by saying, as many of you know, we've had increases in COVID-19 around our community and throughout the state. So our staff continue to work remotely from home. Most all of our things are virtual at this point. Just last month, I mentioned a couple of small exceptions. Those included the poetry events, the unveiling for Poetry on Glass, as well as our mural unveiling program. Now, both of those were done very socially distanced, very small amount of folks that were gathered together for the unveiling itself. So no guests, just the people that were involved. But by and large, our events continue to be held virtually. The city building remains closed to the public, and we are not having any meetings inside the city building with the exception of one of our commissioners attending this meeting in person, and that's Barbara this evening, to make sure that we're in compliance with our Open Meetings Act requirement. We continue to really work hard to share relief information related to COVID-19 to local artists, and then make sure that we can continue as many of our initiatives as possible, and of course be quite creative about making new things happen. We've got a lot of students working with us right now, so let me take a moment to recognize them. The first is Isabel Gleason. So she's been working with me. She actually began this past summer, so you might recognize her because she was one of our interns from the summer. She continued this fall as part of a James Scholar Project, which is a sort of a noteworthy program at the University of Illinois for high achieving students to participate in a particular enrichment project, and hers is designed around access for artists with disabilities and neurodivergent programming. We both came to this with a lot of curiosity. She and I were able to also meet with our very own Frank Modica, who's on our meeting today. And Frank has over 30 years experience as a special education teacher, so it was really wonderful to meet together with him. She conducted a lot of research, and so recently she was able to complete some projects that I will mention a little later in today's presentation. But she's a junior studying music education. She works at the Champaign School of Music as a private voice and piano teacher. She's also involved in things like Illini Swing Society, and one of her projects was creating this virtual concert that I'll mention a little later. I've also got two other students working with me right now. The first is Natalie Weiss. She's a sophomore pursuing a degree in urban and regional planning and minoring in community art education. She's also working with the Asian American Cultural Center on campus and serves as the Asian American Association Board Chair and Public Relations Chair. She has been working particularly with our CU Art Doors project. So that is connected to the Great Art Doors, but particularly working to get folks involved in creating artwork and hashtagging it and being part of that community art initiative. And that same goes for Hannah. So both Hannah and Natalie come to us from the Community Learning Lab CU Scholars Program. Hannah is a PhD candidate in biology. She was really eager, even, she comes from the STEM fields, but she was really eager to get involved in arts because she also has interest in art personally, but also was really interested in growing her experiences with marketing and outreach. And she saw the CU Art Doors proposal as one that was really a good fit for her. She also works as a graduate affiliate for the Center for Innovation in Teaching and Learning. So both Natalie and Hannah have been working to do a lot of outreach to campus populations and to community groups, youth programs, and so on and so forth in order to get our CU Art Doors information out. Again, we continue to have this relationship with the WeCU Community Engaged Scholars Program. This is a program of the Community Learning Lab. I will have a couple of more students come spring who will be working through that program. And I also want to mention that we continue to work with Urbana School District 116. So this upcoming semester, spring semester following our winter break, we will have 2 new students come and join us who will be high school students completing an executive internship. If you're unfamiliar with that program, that is an Urbana School District program that students actually complete internships in place of classes. Sometimes in place of an entire semester worth of classes, and sometimes in addition to a shorter schedule of classes. I'm not certain about the 2 students that are coming to me. I know who they are, but I'm not certain whether they'll be working more or less hours at this point. But you'll be introduced to them at an upcoming meeting. And even though you're just getting introduced to Natalie and Hannah because they got a late start this semester, my hope is to actually have them present to you at your December meeting about what they were able to do during their internship. So you'll hear from them at next month's meeting. Moving right along, here's some updates on your current projects. Right now, of course, really big for us is the launch of the 2021 cycle of Urbana Arts Grants. You're going to hear from Tier 3 presenters today, but we also are accepting applications for Tiers 1 and 2, which one includes Arts in the Schools as a designated award within that category. They are all due on January 13th at 5 p.m. I'll also mention that we are continue to offer a workshop and drop-in hours. So this year we had an in-person workshop that I had scheduled and a virtual workshop. The people who signed up for the in-person workshop, we had very low attendance interest, and so I reached out to the 4 people that had said they were going to come in person and asked whether or not they wanted in person or whether they'd prefer a virtual event. They all preferred virtual, and the whole reason I was offering it in person was to make sure I was accommodating to anyone who might have barriers to the technology or internet connection or anything else that would prevent them from getting in the information. So that was scheduled for Salt and Light in Urbana. We ended up canceling that workshop and having it all be virtual. So everybody who had expressed an interest in that was able to come to the virtual one. And that one was recorded. So now we have a recorded workshop that can be shared and viewed at anyone's leisure. We are also having some drop-in grant hours. So these are opportunities for people to meet with me. Around this time of year, I get an extensive amount of requests for meetings for folks who are coming up with proposals and eager to ask some questions. So I'd like to designate some time, and introducing these drop-in grant hours, I think a couple of years ago, has really been a good decision for the program because it kind of confines it at least a little bit and designates some set time. So we're going to do these all on Zoom. So in other words, I'll have a very zoomed out days coming up, because the first is going to be on December 10th and December 11th. So 2 days in a row from 10 a.m. to noon, and then a break 1 to 3 p.m. Then people are going to be able to sign up for a 15-minute slot to talk to me about their grant questions. And then the last hour, I believe, I'm going to make it the last hour, we'll have just sort of an open free-for-all. So like anyone can join. It'll just be a Zoom conversation. People can popcorn ideas. And what's great about that is that so often during these workshops and drop-in hours, artists actually find each other and they find opportunities for collaboration. So they're really rich in terms of networking and connection. And that's one thing that COVID obviously throws a bit of a wrench into. So I'm trying to still create that as much as possible. So obviously these early ones in December are for our early birds. We have some early birds, but it's usually only a handful. The majority of people apply in January, right before the deadline. So I do have some scheduled for January as well. Those will be January 7th and 9th, 10 a.m. to noon and 1 to 3 p.m. Let's move right along to the Great Art Doors. I hope you've all seen, our 10 pieces within the Great Art Doors scattered throughout Champaign and Urbana have gotten a lot of attention, and it's been really wonderful to have them on display. We have planned for these sculptural public artworks to come down before snowfall. So really ideally before we get too far into December. At the same time, we've been talking about locating them into different indoor places for continued display. And our hope is to have some of those Champaign ones come to Urbana and Urbana go to Champaign, so we really can kind of mix the view and make sure everyone gets a chance to see them. So we also have this collaboration, obviously, with Spurlock Museum, and Spurlock was the major donor towards this program. We're hoping to plan an artist panel, and that's sort of underway at this point as well. Spurlock wants to potentially have some of the pieces inside the museum so they could do a little virtual tour in connection with a virtual artist talk. And it will be as the museum is able to have guests available for viewing. So that's just some updates there. You did mention in your report as well that I am working with Urbana middle school teachers to get middle school students participating in CU Art Doors. As I said before, we've got those 2 interns working specifically on the community element of this project. And this is the advertisement that's gone out about CU Art Doors. Art Inspired in Urbana continues to highlight our local artists on social media. I'm still looking for more artists who'd like to be highlighted, so if anyone knows anybody who'd like to be featured, please send them my way. Of course, we last month honored our Urbana Poet Laureate, Will Rieger. He wrapped up his time as Poet Laureate at the end of October. We're underway with the jurying of our Poet Laureate, our second Poet Laureate in the city's history. We founded this program in 2019 with the mayor's office. This honors a resident poet who serves our diverse community and elevates the importance of creative writing. We've had a number of applications. We're going to be jurying that soon. I'm excited that both our commissioners, Frank and Angela, have agreed to participate on that jury this time around. So thank you for being our commissioners. And I'm really excited to see who is selected next. So we'll have some news about that very soon. We have extended the deadline for our inaugural Youth Poet Laureate program. So this is our new program that celebrates an Urbana youth by sponsoring an Urbana teen poet aged 13 to 18 who serves as a youth ambassador for poetry and utilizes poetry as a means of civic engagement, artistic excellence, and social engagement. We're partnering with Urban Word out of New York City. If you see below on the bottom, they actually generate a logo for us and work with us on different rubrics and marketing, and Urban Word actually manages a lot of the, coordinates a lot of the Youth Poet Laureates together so that they get ongoing mentorship, ongoing publishing opportunities. And once our poet is selected, that student will also be eligible to apply for the national title, which is very exciting for us. So this, again, has been extended. If you know any teens, please send them to apply, 13 to 18 years old. All these applications are currently on our website. I want to mention a very fun recent program. I always bring up our Young Artist Studio. This is our ongoing series for young people, an arts education program for kids 5 and up. Our most recent one was in conjunction with Small Press Fest. You might recall that as another Urbana Arts grant-funded festival. This happened just this past weekend, and we had Cowhouse Press come and give a workshop to the kids called Character Design Discovery, where we did a series of exercises to build our own characters through illustration. What was really cool is that the festival and those responsible for giving the workshop ended up putting together art kits, and it's been lovely to work with the library to have kits picked up for kids that may not have art supplies at home. But these were for everyone who registered. So if you see the upper left corner, they got a lot of their own fun things. They got a zine. They also got a bag full of the workbook for the workshop and some graphic images of their own. So you can see there that there's just been a lot of fun with Young Artist Studio. I'll share, this is not everyone who was in attendance. We had some good attendance this past Sunday, but I had a picture of some of the ones that were able to cover their faces to show their artworks. So those are some pieces, and then the one behind it is actually from our previous Young Artist Studio. So we've got kids making a lot of art, and they continue to send it to us afterwards. Now, I mentioned earlier our Young Artist Studio project, but I also mentioned our Sensory Sensitive Community Concert. So this is Isabel's project. So Isabel's here second from the left. Isabel's Sensory Sensitive Community Concert happened on November 7th, but it is a recording, so you can view it anytime on YouTube. These are the artists that it featured: Elizabeth Meyer, Isabel herself, James, Neha, and Natalia, and they are all jazz or classical musicians from the University of Illinois. So the concert was designed to really take in best practices for how to really build a concert that's sensitive to people who have sensory sensitivities, and it really allows for just a lot of adaptation. So there was consideration given to moves that people could do, or some adaptive interactive movement. There's the ability to take the the video down, to watch it a different way, to have a program that gives it in a text format. So there were just a lot of versions of this workshop, and it really was designed to be adaptable. So we also had combined that with a survey that went out to our community, asking particularly about feedback about what kinds of programming folks would like to see for families with disabilities, artists with disabilities, folks with neurodivergence, and we are gathering a lot of feedback from that. And so we continue to send that out. We've recently met with PACE to talk about an arts grant proposal that they're interested in. So we're trying to do a lot of support to get more programming out for folks with disabilities, and we'll be sharing that data and hopefully having it inform a lot of our future programs as we move forward. Frank, I see you have a question, but I'm going to ask that you hold it to the end. If you can remember it, write it down. And then I just have a few more slides super quick, but you guys selected a couple of sculptures. I'm in the process of working with Public Art League to see if we can sponsor and then place those in Urbana. And so these were the ones that you all were interested in. Art for Nourishment is our program partnering with local food distribution programs to share the creative work of local artists in the spirit of cultivating community and connection. The artworks of 10 selected local artists will be featured on 5x7 prints distributed in meal kits for 30 local families each, served by volunteer food distribution programs. A total of 300 local families will receive an art print, and it's organized by our program in collaboration with the Bucket Brigade, Silver Hearts, and the Tiger Market of Urbana School District 116, so 3 major food insecurity programs. We also have the Artist of the Corridor exhibition. We recently had Women Who Painted, which you may recall was up since March when we went to shelter in place. We recently had that taken down. As I mentioned before, the City of Urbana's program building remains closed, but the library is open. So our plans are to collaborate with the Teen Art project that is also funded by an arts grant to get the exhibit materials that students submit on display at the library in our spot over there. This is a really great program, and I think a great example of how people are really working to adapt in this time of the pandemic. You can see here on the right, the Teen Art exhibit invited teens to sign up. I think there's actually still spots left if you know any teens. You have to be 6th grade through 12th grade, anywhere in there works fine. So middle school or high school students. The kits are what's featured here. A little difficult to see the way I have them here, but I want you to notice that they are giving out really dynamic kits of sculpture materials, acrylic paint materials, illustration, woodworking. You can pick which kit you want, and then the teens, because this was our grant that funded the establishment of a Teen Art Council. So the council actually decided that the theme of the exhibit is called The Ununited States of America, teens reflecting on this particular moment. And they're going to be creating works that will be then on display. So you'll hear more about this next month because the display will kick off in December. But this is sponsored by the Teen Open Lab at the Urbana Free Library and the CU Community Fab Lab working together. I also want to mention that Imagine Urbana is the name of our comprehensive plan being put together by the City of Urbana. The Urbana Arts and Culture Program will be supporting the City of Urbana's comprehensive planning efforts. So I have met with the staff organizing the comprehensive plan to talk about ways that we might be able to support visioning our arts and culture scene 20 years into the future. So we talked about most likely having incorporating some things like engagement opportunities where people can vision what they'd like to see, listening sessions, and then kind of maybe looking at some of our programs as potential places to co-sponsor in this sort of visioning idea. So Young Artist Studio, for example, or Open Scene, or some of the other things that we do may end up having this theme of really visioning for our city and seeing how people can express that through the arts and having that be data to inform the comprehensive plan. So you'll hear more about that, and my hope is that next month we'll be joined by 2 of our staff members at the City of Urbana that are working particularly on the comprehensive plan to talk to you more about it, because I know there's also eagerness to get the input of our Arts Commission on thinking about comprehensive planning. Last but not least, COVID-19 relief for individual artists. This remains to be a great guide. So this is the link I'm giving out to lots of folks. We do have new monies from the Cures Act and other things coming through the city. So we will be having some other relief monies for businesses, and I'll be working hard to get that out to arts businesses as well. And just working in general with our economic development team to get information out. At this point, I'd love to take any questions you have, and I'll start with Frank. Oh, you're muted. Hold on. Sorry. Can you unmute?
Yes.
There you are. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was looking for a link for that concert. Is there one available?
Yes, I'll send it to you after the meeting, and it is available on Urbana Public Television. So the UPTV YouTube channel has it, and it'll be listed under. So UPTV has also a number of. It's a channel, and then they have a number of playlists. So we have a playlist called Urbana Arts and Culture, and it'll all be under there. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Okay, I think we can go ahead then with the Tier 3 Urbana Arts Grants proposal presentations.
So I want to give a bit of an introduction to this because as hopefully as a parent, we've come to that time in which we get our Tier 3 presenters to present to you. But I want to talk a little bit about the timeline. You guys received this in advance of today, but just to reiterate, our timeline did get scooched just a little bit, and that had to do with some scheduling needs for the city. So our presentations are happening tonight. So just to remind you of kind of the process, Tonight really is an invitation for you to hear directly from those whose proposals you received. So you received their full applications. Do contact me after the meeting if for any reason you're having trouble opening that link and seeing applications. Hopefully no one is at this point, but do let me know. You will really just be taking in information tonight. So you're going to get to hear from these presenters, and you can also ask them questions to really get a good sense of their proposal so that you have as much information as you can use and need to use to evaluate them. And you're evaluating then on the written proposal that you received and the presentation this evening. So you will need to submit to me your funding proposal recommendation by December 1st. So your evaluation forms and that funding proposal come together, and those are also available at that link, and you were emailed them. So you should have those documents. You don't necessarily need to fill them out right now. This, of course, this is recorded, so you'll be able to rewatch these presentations if you want to look back, but just be thinking about some questions you might want to ask, because this is a great opportunity to get more information. Now, you'll remember last year when I asked for your feedback about the process, it sounded like the commission could benefit from like an additional day just to discuss before the next meeting is immediately a voting meeting. So we did add that this time around, but it is sort of optional. So if we get to the point of discussing at the December meeting, you feel like you've discussed enough and you actually feel ready to vote, we can vote at that meeting. We just need to make sure we have quorum, of course. So December 8th will be our meeting where I have then taken all your evaluations, and our staff has done a qualitative and quantitative analysis of those evaluations. We pulled all that data together to formulate your recommendation. That recommendation is then a starting point for some discussion that evening. I give the feedback back out so that you also hear some of the comments that each other gave. We'll discuss at that point, and then you can vote that night, or you can choose to vote at the January 12th meeting. And one thing that I want to point out for anybody who applied that's on our call this evening, as a reminder, our deadline is January 13th for tiers 1 and 2. So at the latest, you will learn on January 12th if you were funded and how much you were funded. And you are always welcome, regardless of funding, to apply in up to 2 categories per season, as long as you know that they cannot depend on one another. So you can't apply for a portion of a festival on another grant, for instance, but it could fund other kinds of programming you do throughout the year. So just remember that, and if for any reason you're not funded, you have the opportunity then to apply in a lower tier. So any questions about the timeline? Yes, Jared.
I didn't have a question. I just wanted to let my fellow board members know that I have another meeting at 5:30. So if you see me disappear, that's where I've gone. But I'll definitely be watching back and looking at all the conversation that goes on.
Yes, and I'll say too, one more thing. This was true of our last cycle, and we're going to handle everything the same way this time around. So if you have questions that come up between now and when you need to submit something to me by December 1st, you are welcome to ask that of me, and I will pass it along to the applicant, and then we'll get that written response back. And the same goes with all of our applicants on the call this evening. If you can't answer a question right now, that's okay. If you need to go back and look at notes, or you want to go back and consult something before you give an answer, you just need to note that and then send us a written response before, I'm going to say at least a few days before December 1st. I would argue by the end of next week would be important to do that, to give our commissioners some time to get that information before they evaluate. Okay, I hope the process is quite clear, but of course, let me know if you have any questions at all. And we will begin this evening with a presentation from Patrick Singer and Seth Fine for Pygmalion 2021.
Hello. Hi, everyone. So Patrick is going to put up a PowerPoint for us.
Yeah, I can share.
It feels like just yesterday I was talking to you all about what happened in 2020. It's a long memory. Don't really remember it, but I'll try to dredge it up. But here we are, back again. And we are very much planning to do Pygmalion in 2021. What that looks like, I'll spare you the same speech you hear from everyone all the time. We're pretty excited about what we were able to uncover in the moment. We felt like we got to work with some people, particularly in Urbana, as a result of the grant that we never would have done otherwise. Opened up a door, a couple of doors actually, where we feel like we probably wouldn't want to go back from that now, because it was just so kind of radical as far as ideas as to how to make an event something more interesting and something more unique to our community and unique to the moment. So yeah, we're very excited about what Pandemic Pygmalion did for our future. It also probably made Pygmalion the longest running festival of its kind in America, because we actually did it and most of the other ones that have come before us canceled. So we're pretty proud of that fact, and we've got a lot of great community support, including the Public Arts Commission, to thank for that. So I don't have the exact data on it, but something I'm telling my kids for sure, that Papa and Uncle Patrick, we do the longest running festival in America. Go to bed. Okay, so that's where things are at. For what's coming up in the future, like I said, we just don't know. But we do feel pretty strongly about where things are at. Seems like we'll have something of a new America, whatever that means, and maybe some potential for cogent discussion about distribution of a vaccine. Maybe we'll get lucky and this particular virus will start to dwindle the way that other coronavirus have in the past. And by September, hopefully we'll be in a place where there is some, possibility for some in-person stuff. And we're going to go ahead and continue to plan like that's going to happen. What that looks like, we just can't say today, but in February and April and June, we'll have more understanding. And something that we had to learn about this year was pivoting fast. And I think we'll be able to do that again next year. And we feel pretty good about our options, no matter what happens. Mm-hmm. I don't know, Patrick, if you want to change the slide, but.
I think I'm capable of that. There we go.
Yep. So yes, quickly, brief overview. Pygmalion is owned and operated by Fine Bersoni. It's our 17th year in 2021 doing Pygmalion. Patrick Singer is my partner in the company, and we continue to try to shape shift and create new space for what it means to have an event in the modern moment. Our budget definitely is going to be reduced next year. I'll spare you the sob story, but it was a fun year. It was a fun year for us financially, but we felt like we were able to make good changes and good cuts to keep ourselves afloat, try to just paddle upstream but survive. We're going to cut back on some things for sure for next year. And if the sea parts and the sky's open, we can always change that. But for right now, we're going to scale back on our goals. But that doesn't mean we can't continue to provide the community and the region with a really important piece of programming. We feel very strongly that we're well suited to do that. You know, if you don't remember last year's presentation, Patrick and I had really committed to the idea of continuing to prioritize Urbana as our centerpiece for where we stage Pygmalion. And then we were even actually shifting further in that we used to do a lot of stuff in the Krannert Center campus town, East Urbana campus district, but we were actually moving everything to downtown Urbana. And it is still very much our intention to do that, which is to say that we want to do the Made Fest in downtown Urbana. What that looks like, again, waiting to see. But yeah, the shift and the focus is going to continue to be in downtown Urbana. So you can rest assured that with or without the grant, you know, fingers crossed, you're going to see a lot of activity inside of downtown Urbana. And what that means, outdoor shows and outdoor programming, and then collaboration with other businesses, feels like it's pretty strong that that's going to be the case. So we're pretty excited about it, obviously. So we felt like last year's program went well, given everything. I don't know how to compare it, and I'm not going to sit here and give you a bunch of flowery language that says like it was this amazing or this incredible. I mean, we felt good. We felt like everything was executed well. We felt like the internet worked, and we felt like the screen wasn't blurry, and we felt like there were people watching because we have the data that showcases it. And we got viewership from all over the world. Participation in the virtual escape room and the hackathon and the Minecraft event. I mean, literally all over the world. I'm serious when I say from Finland to Brazil, there were participants that were a part of our program, and that was very exciting for us. You know, in a normal year, according to VCC, we generate about $1 million in economic impact across the board. That probably did not happen this year, and I can tell you that you know the reasons why. But, you know, we did reach, 35,000 patrons online, and that's more than what we normally do in person. So in some ways, we're very proud of that. In other ways, we're excited to see what that means for potential for hybridization in the future. So as you'd expect, we are requesting the full amount in $10,000. Like we said, it was a weird year. We were grateful and fortunate to have a lot of our sponsors stick with us. We lost some, but we felt like we were able to pivot and make that, in the lemons into lemonade, so to speak. What next year looks like, we're starting those conversations now. We're fortunate again that after 17 years, our partners are our friends, and they believe in what we do, and they know that when we have a chance to do what we're able to do again in full capacity, that we're going to come back stronger and better than ever, and that we're going to be hungrier as a people and as a community. But we're going to try to fundraise our best, and we're going to put our weight as much as we can behind Smile Politely, the magazine that we publish as well, to try to continue to offset the losses from Pygmalion. I mean, the simple truth is that our business model and full transparency is that we, Folk and Roots and everyone else can attest to this in some ways. It's like you raise money, you try to pay the, fees for artists and for production and for staffing, and then you sell tickets. You sell tickets to offset the the loss on those expenditures, and then you make money based on whatever overage there is. Some years up, some years down. This year, there were no ticket sales. We did take donations. We were able to distribute almost $5,000 to 40 North and United Negro College Fund and Josh's Fund and NEVA and
Up Center.
Up Center, yeah, the Up Center of Champaign County. So we felt very good about our ability to use our platform to make some donations this year in lieu of selling tickets. But yeah, we feel pretty good about what happened and what's possible. So look, that's where we're at. It may sound repetitive to some of you, but it's still who we are, and we're still really excited and enthusiastic about what it means for Urbana and for the greater, Urbana, Champaign County area. So,
And if I might add, I felt like, I know Seth, he talked about the last follow-up from 2020, and I think that one thing that we really thought brought things full circle was being able to utilize the grant funds to reinvest into a business like CU Adventures, which, obviously has been hit by the pandemic just as hard as any other brick and mortar. So we felt like, as Seth was talking about, recreating certain situations and scenarios for our programming with Pygmalion that don't, it's a challenge to convert things into a virtual world. And, by being able to work on that with them through the funds that we were able to get from the Arts and Culture Commission, and to showcase really interesting and cool artists inside of that, and use the Station Theater as well. We felt like that was a really cool way to kind of work through this. So with that experience, I think Seth and I are both really excited about what we'd be able to present next year based on some of this weirdo programming that turned out to be some of the more successful and accessible free programming that we were able to provide. So I think, as we talked about not being able to sell tickets, we were able to provide a ton of free programming, even more so than we usually do. And that, as we've talked about before with our in-person events, we're always interested in, providing educational and interesting and accessible programming for anyone. We felt that doing a free program online was just about as good as we could have done. And we, hopefully we can do things in person come September 2021. But in the event we're not, I think that we're excited to still be able to create something interesting and that appeals to a wide variety of ages. So I think that, we're grateful for the support, and we're hopeful that the commission will see that and the value that it brought to Urbana in particular.
Does anyone have any questions? I don't know if you don't have to share your screen anymore, Patrick.
Okay.
And so this is the time for any questions from our commissioners for Seth or Patrick. Frank.
Really not a question, but a comment. I'm just amazed at what you were able to do, given the constraints that you were laboring under. Just the variety, the diversity of activities, the different outreaches, the people that were served, the people that participated. I was blown away. I don't know how you could have kept up the energy to maintain the momentum, but you did.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I cannot say that as awesomely as Frank just said, but absolutely, I was able to watch some of it, and not as much as I wanted to, but to hear your recap of everything, I was just blown away. I was thinking of questions. Everything that I asked, I think on my first year on the council, was kind of addressed this year, and I'm almost grateful for this particular time because of what it's, and that's probably the wrong way to say that. But I think that it has opened up some amazing opportunities that I'm very interested in seeing. How we're going to explore this just as a community, as a nation, as a global community, and I just want to, it was awesome. Great job. I want to see what you're going to do next time around. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Stacey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the age-old topic. How can you top yourself the next time?
We shall see.
Well, we've got a lot of support, and my brain and Patrick's brain are already spinning. Like, how do we top it? But how do we just improve upon it? I mean, the escape room alone. I mean, I think that Ann and Chris, we're probably gonna have to pay him more money next time because it was a beast of a job. But that's okay. I mean, genuinely and truly, we're always fine spending money on things that have value and that improve the lives of the people that live here and invests into art. But like, one of the interesting conversations that we had over the course of this summer was that we learned from agents, that represent big deal artists that escape rooms are very popular. And there are artists in the world that I'm not going to mention names because I don't want to get anyone excited. This is being recorded. But there are artists that are definitely you all would probably recognize that are of renown, that were like, whoa, you're doing a virtual escape room? It's like, keep us in mind for the future, because we'd fly in for that and participate in something immersive. And it's like, wait a minute, why can't we do that? We don't have to approach a festival in the way that people told us we have to. We just have to put collaboration at the forefront. And when we get that support and when we get that, energy together, then we can start doing things differently. And that makes people from outside of Champaign-Urbana go, oh, I guess they do things differently. And so that's the goal. I mean, that's just one of a lot of examples. So,
and I think
sorry, I'm starting to get excited about next year.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Seth and Patrick. Thanks again. It seems like, it was just a year ago when I first heard your presentation. And it's congratulations on what you're able to do in this time period. But I'm going to ask questions similar to what I asked a year ago, which I don't feel like were addressed in this talk. And maybe I just am not aware of what all you did. I'm always impressed by your numbers, by your budget, and also though, the income that you generate for the community and the people that you employ. So I would like to know, how many of those people, can you talk about the diversity of those who are employed? You've employed over 400 people. How many of those people, can you talk about the diverse backgrounds of those people?
So to be clear, what the number you were looking at is from a Visit Champaign County study that showcases, how many jobs in Champaign County are supported by the event. We don't employ 490 people.
Okay.
We employ Patrick and ourselves, and then on the weekend of the event, we have a temporary labor staff that is in place doing production or security, hospitality, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, this year we were on a skeleton crew. We had 4 employees, 3 women, 3 men. If you're looking for, total breakdown of demographic and their gender and their orientation and the color of their skin, we could provide that for you if you want. It's relatively diverse, more diverse in a year when we're employing, up to 60 to 75 people. But we try to do a good job in filling roles based on, both pedigree inside of their particular role, and then also trying to pay attention to what makes sense for a good community representation.
I think just to add to that, I think that as is always with our mission with our programming is to have to hire people through our programming that are diverse. So we, and we might not be as diverse as we want to be behind the scenes, whether it's someone that's, helping make the streams work, or like me posting to social media or something. We found that, especially this year, reinvesting the money that we had earned through sponsorship, directly paying artists to be a part of our programming, that was at least a big initiative for Seth and I when we saw, hey, here's how much money we think we can spend on our programming, including the grant that we got. How do we reinvest that into artists and then have them participate as themselves, as a part of someone that literally makes the event work? So I think that, whether it's Tawny Newsome, being literally hired as talent to do her live podcast with Andrew T. You know, she's a Black woman. He's an Asian man. These are very deliberate things that we do to be able to showcase that, hey, we're not only trying to reinvest in art, but we're trying to reinvest in Black art and all other sorts of things that, you know, hey, if we're living in this virtual world and there's only a few people helping make the event happen, we better be doing our job by investing money into people that don't look like Seth and I. You know,
right.
I think that
yeah.
that's a big point I want to make.
Thank you, because that's one of on our score sheet that we're asked to look at community engagement. And so, yeah. So I'm just asking how you're doing.
Sure.
Yeah, Angela, I would encourage you to go check out the website.
Does that have your people that work with you on?
Exactly. Well, if you click on past, I think I could post this link. If you click on past, it will bring up, how do I do this? Do I do this?
I don't know if we have a chat feature on the webinar version, but I'm happy to send out the link after the meeting.
If you go and look at past performer, you know, Pygmalion, you'll get a chance to see the authors and the speakers from this year. And you'll be able to look at 16 years of history, and you'll see that over the last 5 years, it has changed radically because we had to do a lot of soul searching and, you know, re-examining how we want to present, who we are, why we are. You know, when I was 25 and started the festival, I had a very narrow view of what I wanted it to be. It was about, you know, I always felt very strongly about presenting what I loved. You know, it was like I wanted to be passionate about what I was presenting. So I woke up and I was like excited to put up posters and like excited to like show people these bands. And then at some point you get older and you hear from people and they tell you like, hey, that's pretty cool, but like, what about this person? What about that person? And you have to really, there's a moment in everyone's life, hopefully, where they're like, I need to improve. I'm hearing this. And then it's less about what I wanted to see and more about what other people want to see. And I think that Patrick and I, over the last 5 years, with a lot of great advice, I mean, Courtney Becks, you know, really encouraged us to make a diversity statement. It's like, great, your programming is getting more colorful. That's good. But what does it mean? And she asked us, she said, put it, so we did. And with respect. I need to hear that stuff. And I'm not going to stop learning as long as I'm still breathing.
Because I want to say one more thing, though. Because it's people behind the scenes sometimes who help make decisions. And it is important to have a diversity behind the scenes, too, I think.
Absolutely.
So thank you for continuing to address it.
Of course.
For sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, and maybe one thing connected to that is as I was interested in a number of things that you presented this year. I mean, I always am. And I was noticing, like, you take some time to really ground the local. And I remember the collaboration with, like, Illinois Public Media, for instance. And Patrick, you mentioned that, like, Yo, Is This Racist podcast talk, like these different sorts of things that we have going on. But I'm curious, like, if you could speak a little bit to that for anyone else who doesn't know, in particular, some of the like the free and local things besides the escape room that also really maybe, I mean, everything was free this past year, I understand. But, you know, just sort of thinking about what are some of the things that to you really speak to that you were able to produce this last year?
Are you asking me or Patrick or either of us?
Yeah, either of you. So just when you think over your program of this past year and we're at, and you know where we are, we're really trying to amplify underrepresented voices. Where do you see that has shown the most? Yeah,
you know, inside the local community, you know, we feel very strongly about what we're doing with the literary marathon, of course. There's sadly not enough room in the world these days for the celebration of literature. I can tell you firsthand that it's really hard to get people to want to give money to that type of programming. But for those who do, we feel like it's a very rewarding experience. It doesn't draw as many people as, say, you know, pop music, but it doesn't mean that it's any less valuable or important to put into the world. So certainly the Literary Marathon, which provides a lot of space to a lot of people at a lot of ages. And you know, our partner, Jim O'Brien, who does Urbana Poetry Group, helps us put that together. And we felt very strongly about the programming that was able to come forward. And, you know, the hackathon, you know, inside of Champaign-Urbana, we have such a, you know, rich multinational community, and particularly from Southeast Asia and, you know, Korea and China in particular. And we see a tremendous amount of participation with that community inside of a broader community that I think we're more used to. And so that's another one that we are pretty excited to continue to see growing. I think that there's always room for improvement, and I certainly know that in a different year, we had some pretty significant plans to continue to do that hard work, but it's something that we're going to continue to focus on, and continue to, and you know, look towards.
Well, I know one of the things I attended was Alana Glazer's talk because I just love her, and it was so focused on like political activism, but also thinking about the local, which I thought was really interesting because you have this person who's not local, she's in New York, talking about Urbana and trying to kind of learn more about Urbana. I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah, her interview with Chandra Bishop, who ran for coroner and who is now running for
City Council.
Urbana City Council. Yeah, that was another really wonderful moment in the festival this year, because Alana Glazer is obviously an international star as a comedian and as a television producer, and to have her have a very, you know, engaging and robust discussion with a woman like Chandra, that's exciting for us, you know. We get to set the stage. It's the best thing we know how to do. You know, we're not the talent. We're just gonna be here to set the table and let the artists do their work.
Did you want to add something, Patrick?
Well, you beat me to it, because I was going to just talk about how interesting it was to work with Alana Glazer and her team and the Generator team, because they're truly invested in finding ways to further engage with these types of things, where it's not just like some other famous person that's like, okay, so-and-so, I'm doing this thing at Pygmalion, can you come on and talk? And we'll just, you know, talk for an hour or whatever. And their team was really excellent at identifying these particular candidates based on things they believe deserve a higher platform. So I think that right there, you know, we see the, you know, the artist funds that we use for Pygmalion directly going to, you know, find a larger platform for someone like a Chandra Bishop or whomever to be able to say, hey, you know, I am literally on a Zoom with a famous person that has a lot more reach than I do, and now I'm getting the benefit of being able to actually have a really interesting conversation with them. And it was, you know, just a mere 6 weeks before the election, and you know, it was just interesting to see how the Generator crew kind of dug in and really did pay attention to what and who were people worth talking to in the, you know, in Champaign County. So I felt like that was really good. And as Seth mentioned, the hackathon and the literary marathon, you know, we worked with a student this year for our hack. He's Pakistani and a university student who, you know, was just part of the Hack Illinois crew. And we hired him to run our hackathon for us this year. Especially in the virtual sense, it became a much different bear based on what it is in person. You know, I'm not so young anymore, so I don't really know what 21-year-olds are doing or how they function inside of a hack digitally. So it was interesting to work with him, being a computer science student at the university, and that kind of goes back to what Angela was talking about. Who are we hiring? Who are we literally hiring to help make this thing work? You know, he had a ton of creative control over what that piece of programming was. I realize that falls kind of outside of this Arts and Culture Commission component, but we feel like,
we believe in STEAM.
Yeah, with a little more, and I think with a little more time, you know, hopefully, fingers crossed, we can gather in person in next September. But you know, given that we kind of knew that we had to flip the switch from our in-person to digital or virtual programming in 2020 in you know, June or July, you know, our runway was a lot shorter. So we feel like we'll have the benefit of more time, and, you know, that allows Seth and I as the creative controllers of the program to really dive in and have more conversations. Cause I think that, you know, last summer, it's just like a blur. So we feel like, given that sort of timeline, to create even more, whether that's a virtual program or not, you know, that's going to benefit everyone, we think, based on, you know, how we can put our heads together and create something cool that puts Urbana on the map.
Right. Do you imagine you'll retain some of the virtual things even if you do go to in-person? This is the question I'm going to ask of both all presenters tonight.
I don't think that we're yet in a position to say yes or no. I mean,
Okay.
It's just too early. I can certainly state that if we have to, we feel strongly that we're going to be able to do it and do it well.
Yeah.
But I could certainly see with the literary marathon and the hack and there being hybridization for sure.
Sure. Okay.
I think there's room for both. So.
Yeah. Other questions, folks, for this group?
I have one. Will any of your programming from this season be available in your archives, on your website, or was it more of a one-time
It's all
viewing opportunity?
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay.
I think there was a little lag. Yeah, it's all available on our website. So if you go to thisispygmalion.com/watch, and you can actually watch every single piece of programming, minus the Urbana Free Library reading that we did. If you're interested in watching that, it's not hosted online, but we can email Rachel, or you can email us. I think you know how to reach both Seth and I, and we're happy to provide that for you. But yeah, everything's still online, so you can go watch it. And if you weren't able to watch it while it was happening, you know, that's kind of the beauty of the internet. So it's all there.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Seth and Patrick.
Thanks,
if we have any additional questions, you'll be hearing from me. So, and then you'll have some days to respond, but I don't necessarily foresee them, but if they come, I'll be sure to pass them along. So thank you for your presentation this evening.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Rob Crum and Cody Jensen of CU Folk and Roots presenting CU Folk and Roots Festival 2021 grant proposal. Hi there, Rob Crum.
Yeah. Let me, I'll go ahead and share my screen. It's good to see everybody. It's good job from Pygmalion folks. That was enjoyable. And let me go ahead and share my screen. I don't live on Zoom like some of the rest of you do, so I may be fumbling around a little bit here. All right.
You seem to get it. You got it. Mm-hmm.
I was tutored earlier today by an expert, so. Okay, so kind of like Pygmalion, we're going to talk about the 2021 proposal, but I'm going to talk about what happened in 2020, and I'll just offer an apology up front. This happened last year too, where you know, the Folk and Roots Festival just happened about 3 weeks ago, and we're still kind of folding the tent on the festival, and we're kind of caught in a little bit of administrative no man's land that presents us with the fact that we are writing the proposal before we submit we're providing the proposal for next year before providing the report for the previous year. So I'm going to go ahead and talk a bit about what happened, because it may have some impact. I do want to mention we have Cody Jensen with us. So Cody was actually administratively one of the big success stories of the festival this year, as we were able to hire Cody as our first ever part-time festival director. So we were going to keep that going in the future. So this will be a little bit of a hybrid presentation. And so as we go into 2021, this will be our 13th festival. We did start in 2009. So a little bit about the 2020 festival. As I said, we did hire Cody. That was great. We hosted what's called a winter weekend. We've done that about 5 years in a row. And, you know, we were cruising into 2020 like life was just fine and dandy. And then, of course, the remainder of the year was impacted by COVID-19. So we did make a decision. We waited until June. That was kind of the last minute for us. The festival held in October. We made a decision to go a 2-day festival, all online, everything virtual. And so what we did were 30 events that were live performances and some pre-recorded performances. And because the festival is a lot more than just performances, we wanted to include some other components. So we did have some interviews, we had presentations, we had some discussions, we had some topics that were, you know, kind of dug into some social issues. This screen just shows a few performances. That's Little Miss Ann, who's a terrific performer for kids of all ages from Chicago. And yeah, that was how it looked. They got purple and yellow somehow. It was pretty fun. There's a performance at the Rose Bowl, and that's Hannah Mayrie, who we had some discussions about from this group called the Black Banjo Reclamation Project, which she represented that. So we had local, regional, and national artists. We did make a very, with everything going on this year, we did formulate a statement in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. That's on our website. We thought that was very important. So we also wanted to really feature, and we always feature a lot of Black musicians. We try to keep our lineup very diverse every year, kind of, I would say, similar to Pygmalion. The diversity for the festival is really in the lineup. There's a small number of people working through the year on the festival, but we really try to represent a lot of diversity with our lineup. And so this year we had Dom Flemons, who used to be in the Carolina Chocolate Drops. Dom is kind of a local, he's got a local following. This was his third time. Terrific band from Austin, Texas, Hot Club of Cowtown. And a number of other performers, local performers and national. So we wound up having 23 performances and 7 other events. They were presentations, and that included a Candy Foster interview, which we really love Candy. And you know, to me, Candy Foster is as much of an icon in the local music scene as anyone in Champaign-Urbana. And the interview was just terrific. We had a roundtable discussion at the porch at the Iron Post patio, 4 local Black musicians kind of talking about what it's like to be a musician in the Champaign-Urbana area. And we had a lot of other stuff too. So we provided 12 hours of content, all provided for free. Donations were accepted, and all the content is still available on the website, folkandroots.org. There's 3 performance segments there: Friday night, Saturday daytime, and Saturday night. We'll just keep moving here. A little more about the 2020 festival. So we attracted a really good audience. We had people watching from all over the country. We heard comments from people from Washington to Florida and many states in between. I don't think we had anyone from Brazil like Pygmalion did, but maybe we had international viewers. We did receive a lot of comments from viewers, and this continues as all of us involved with the festival just happen to run into people. It was an entirely different festival for sure. We learned a lot. Our website crashed right away. So just to kind of confess that, you know, didn't really see that coming, but the demand was immediate right when we started streaming. So, but that was fixed pretty readily. We did reach an entirely new audience, which is a lot of fun. So I'd say that streaming, at least for part of the festival, is going to be part of our future festivals. It's hard to ignore how well we connected with a lot of people. And, you know, including right now, a lot of people who didn't feel like, who wouldn't have come to any live events anyway. Some of the artists are easier to work with, just like live performances. We had different qualities. We have a lot of good ideas about structuring the content next year as far as what to really ask for. And, you know, I just wanted to point out that we have a really great community here. So one of our community members, maybe you know him and maybe you don't, but it's Jake Metz. And really without Jake, we would have never really been able to do the festival. He's an audio and technical expert. He knows everything. He brought about 10,000 feet of cabling of various sorts into the Rose Bowl. That's that's the picture for success there. When you see that much cabling laying anywhere, you know things are going to work. So, and I would say this too, the people and businesses in the community, they continue to support the festival, even though they knew it was going to be all online. So let's talk about next year. So we're proposing about a year from now, late October, as usual. You know, we maybe are the most optimistic group in town. We hope to get back to what we'll call a normal or traditional festival. Multiple venues with audiences. You know, we know there's a lot of concern with what's going on nationwide with COVID. You know, we're very optimistic about the incoming administration. So that's how our proposal is written. We will amend the format and the budget as needed as we go along. We stand ready to visit the entire virtual festival format that worked really well this year. And, you know, a lot of people were very happy with the results. So, and I'd say one distinct possibility is we might wind up with a hybrid kind of festival format where we have some live events and some streamed events. And, you know, I don't know if anyone went over to the Rose Bowl through the summer months while the weather was nice. They had a huge tent set up over there on their parking lot, and that we'll probably do that next year. So, you know, outdoor events could be a part of the festival for sure, even though we're talking about, you know, third week of October. It could be cool. It could be nice. But, you know, there are many other locations in the downtown area we could talk to people about setting up some tents. And like I said, a streaming component will definitely be part of the festival. So a little bit about the background. I'm not going to read through all this. We have been around since 2008 when we organized. We have an annual budget of about $40,000. In a regular year, hands-on activities are a big part of our festival. That's kind of what makes the festival different than a lot of other festivals. So we get people here, they participate in performances and workshops. They're very accessible and people love that. You know, we do hold the festival mostly in downtown Urbana, and I'd say on the Urbana side of campus. Last year, we did a number of events we always do something at Cranor, but we also use the Red Herring and the Channing Murray Foundation, both. We have a lot of free events as part of the festival as well. So that is kind of key to accessibility. We feel, you know, keeping a lot of the festival free, 60% of the festival is free. And then for the part of the festival that requires admission, last year we sold the full festival pass at $40 in advance, which is very, very reasonable. Just there's a map of downtown Urbana kind of looking down. Everything's kind of centered in places about at Race and Main, right in the middle of downtown, the Rose Bowl, Community Center for the Arts, Iron Post, going down Ray Street to the Urbana Free Library and several other venues. So, you know, downtown Urbana is a good fit for us. It's a big part of the festival. This is some of our project partners. We couldn't do the festival without all of these people. And as Seth mentioned, you know, we have had the festival going long enough that, you know, a lot of these people don't hesitate to support the festival year in and year out. You know, all you really have to do is send them a letter or ask. And, you know, we have really good relationships with a lot of businesses in town and a lot of people and organizations. And, you know, it's really the fact that we also had our donations from individuals went up this year. So we had been running about 90 or 100 individuals supporting the festival. We had donations this year from about 130, which is good. So a few more people. And a big shout out to the Urbana Free Library. You know, they are one of our key partners, and we love the library. These are just some of the things that happened there last year. So the impact of the festival, it brings a lot of people into downtown Urbana. It builds a sense of community. It helps increase business. It in downtown, increase the visibility for people who are working with us. And, you know, the festival has a good reputation right now. We get more performer requests than we can really handle, which is a good sign. But that word of mouth, musician to musician or band to band recommendations going strong for us. So we did propose a budget of $10,000. The majority of that will be used for performance fees, which is our biggest expense. The grant funding also be used to support technical people, support staff, so promotion and printing and some other items. We're fully prepared to match that at 70%, which is about $30,000 that comes from contributions from partners and individuals. If we have to change due to public health concerns, you know, we will amend the festival budget and the festival format, you know, to reflect those changes. And, you know, we feel like we probably have until, you know, like I said, we waited until June this year to make some final decisions about the format of the festival. We probably have until May or June again this year before we will, you know, get there and have to make some decisions. So as far as the budget impact, you know, we really feel strongly about supporting local people. So we pay performers, we pay everybody that performs at the festival. All of the people, the technical people are local folks. We contract with local graphic artists, and you know, we feel very strongly we have a big commitment to Urbana and the local community. So we don't go to places like Guitar Center and ask for funding. I just have to mention that. I mean, we could, but you know, I kind of feel strongly that we are better off working with some of the local music shops. And, you know, Guitar Center doesn't really need to be promoted by our festival to succeed, but a place like the Upper Bowder, the music shop or Course in Music, you know, they need all the help they can get. So, you know, I just want to thank you for supporting the festival in the past. The Arts Grant Program has supported the festival since the very first year of the festival, which is 2009. And, you know, I think Barbara remembers that. I'm not sure anyone else here was on the crew at the time, but like I said before, downtown Urbana is a part of the identity of the festival, and the grant funding is it's a crucial part of the festival. So, you know, we have about 15 people working on the festival. That's all of them right there, some faces, some names. So if you happen to know any of those people, tell them thanks for their work. So that's all the presentation. So thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Cody. Questions for Rob or Cody from the commissioners?
A comment. I was able to watch some of that, and I want to go back and watch more of it actually. And it was a great festival. Folk music is not necessarily my aesthetic, you know, but I was like, I'm going to support, I'm going to watch this, I'm going to learn. And when Jake Blunt, was it Blunt? When he presented, I was so like glued. He made me spend $100 in his presentation. And it was incredible. And I didn't watch it live. I actually went back and watched it. But I mean, I have like 5 books I think he presented, and I learned so much that night from his presentation. So I didn't see the entirety I didn't see everyone's performance, but it was so eclectic and I learned so much. And I just wanted to say thank you for that, because it for someone who's just coming back to the community and is on this Arts Council and familiarizing myself with the community more, it made me feel more connected, and it made me feel, is the word more inundated or more embedded in the community in the way that I've been wanting to. And even that festival, even though folk music isn't necessarily my aesthetic, you know, it made me, I was like, dang, I think I'm probably gonna buy a house here, and I could see retiring here. I see how that happens now with so many of my friends, and I get how that happens now. But this spoke to your event spoke to exactly what I love so much about this community. I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Good. Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, there might be some major future in folk and house music collaborations.
I'm thinking about it. I promise you, I'm doing some research.
I'm all about the unusual collaborations, so there's definitely future there.
Well, it's the folk music, unfortunately, I would say, really got branded over the years, and but if you kind of think about it as music played by folks, there's so much American music over the landscape that you would never think of as maybe folk music, but like every bit of music that's come up from New Orleans, or the blues, traditional jazz, there's so much music and that's really why we added that roots part of the name from the start, because roots music is maybe a little better inclusive descriptor of some of the musical influences that folk music's just not one person and a guitar and a banjo, or a singer-songwriter sitting. That it includes singer-songwriter for sure, and it includes that one person with a guitar and a banjo. But it's we try to blow some minds every year with what we include. So that's to Cody's credit. He's the booking guy. So.
Thank you, Cody.
Other questions, commissioners?
Yep. As I mentioned before, the content is still available. It may not be up forever, but it's still up right now. And so you can stream that in, manageable chunks. They are put up in 4-hour blocks of time, but we tried to timestamp in the comments. You'll see if you're looking for something in particular, that way you can kind of move through the video to the place where exactly what you want to see.
Now, you answered a lot of the questions that I had planned to ask in your presentation. So that I just wanted to go back and make sure that we all heard. So one of my questions was, do you think you'll retain some of the online streaming, even if we are to go in person? And are you prepared for a potentially 100% virtual festival if that's necessary? And it sounded like you are prepared for those two things, and you are possibly considering streaming regardless of the situation. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think what we found was we streamed live performances.
Mm-hmm.
But we streamed more pre-recorded performances, and those maybe present logistically an easier task to get your hands around. Cody, you can jump in here. You were heavily involved with this, but it would probably be good for us to think about streaming. Mm-hmm. A lot of pre-recorded content, because for one thing, you can reach out to bands everywhere, performers everywhere, and we did pay performance fees this year, but we frankly had some performers that we can't afford their live performance fee, but we could afford their fee as a pre-recorded segment.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think it offers a lot of interesting opportunities for us. Like Rob said, maybe getting to work with some acts that we couldn't otherwise work with, that being one. He touched on how we are able to reach a much broader audience. We had viewers all over the nation, and actually a bunch in Canada as well. I don't know about Brazil either, but let's see if we can get any info on that. And then the other one that I think is just as important is accessibility. And, we, like Rob said, about 60% of the festival is free every year, and that's really important to us. But offering free content that's available to you wherever you are is another way of being really accessible.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's been a topic of conversation, I think, more largely with our program too, and any of us that have been doing events that I've spoken to who are programming during this time and thinking like, well, what is this time going to do and shape for how we work into the future, even after, you know, the pandemic may be over or lessened. You know, it's like we probably expect that there'll still be some combination because there have been some silver linings with how it's done, and we do reach different audiences. Mm-hmm. Right. Other questions or comments? Don't all jump at once.
I know.
Frank?
Just in general, very similar to comments I made about Pygmalion. The amount of creative adjustment, the resilience of the art community here and the people, the flexibility, the willingness to take chances is, you know, it's very inspiring, but it's also something to express our, you know, my personal appreciation for.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, like I said, I'm not sure. I think Jake has applied for some arts grants.
He's a recipient as well for some of his own projects too. In fact, one pretty likely impacted by COVID-19. Right. So yeah.
You know, we're blessed to have him here in the community. I mean, you know, people like Jake they're terrific resources. You know, it was just he was the right person for where the festival went this year. I don't know, you know, we probably could have, you know, found someone else, but he was just the right person. I mean, mm-hmm. He's just really just so together. It reminded me you know, we did all this at the Rose Bowl, and so being at the Rose Bowl reminded me of, I'm not sure if everybody's seen that movie with Jim Carrey, The Truman Show, you know, but yeah. Jake was the director. He had everybody, you know, everybody going in the right direction and at the right time, and you know, he'd call for quiet and everybody would shut up. It was pretty cool.
And you were streaming and you weren't sure who was watching.
Kind
of like the Truman Show. That is the interesting thing of doing shows without a live audience, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean it was really it is you know, you just have to, you know, it's kind of like planning events. You don't know who's showing up, and right. The virtual events you really don't know who's out there until sometime after the fact.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
And with a mask on. Yes. I've been doing a lot of that lately.
A last call for any questions? Okay, just as I said to Pygmalion, if there are other questions that the commissioners do come up with, or if you have anything you'd like to add about the questions that you were asked today, we'll do all of that through email. And if I get any, I'll be sending them along and you'll have an opportunity to respond in written form. And then as a reminder to commissioners, you will be filling out evaluation forms. These are the only two presenters this year in our Tier 3 category. So these two teams will be evaluated through your evaluation forms, and then you'll come up with your recommendation. So you'll use your forms to score, and that score obviously should inform your funding recommendation. And then you'll give those to me. I'll be working together with Heather Ann, and we'll put that into our own system for tallying and evaluating, combining all of your work together. And then we'll present that back to you next month on December 8th at the meeting so that you can hear a little bit more. So we'll need those forms submitted by December 1st. And then any questions would take place before that December 1st time. Cody and Rob and Seth and Patrick, if they're still on the call, that's where that would happen for you four.
Okay.
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 Well, thank you again for your presentation.
You.
Thank you. It's good to see you both.
Thank you. Thanks, Stacy.
Thank you.
Commissioners, I just want to ask, do you have any questions about our process for Tier 3? Heather Ann and I did take a moment to review your feedback from, it was our March meeting, we determined from last year, that where you gave where we had an agenda item to really go over Tier 3. And so that is why we added that other day. Of course, sometimes it's beneficial for them to hear sooner than later. So if we discuss on December 8th, and it seems to be that, you know, you're discussing the recommendation and you feel solid about voting, you can move to vote at that meeting. But I wanted to make sure that you had a timeline that stretches it out a little bit more so that you got to have that more robust discussion that you were asking for last year. The actual forms are relatively exactly the same as last year, so they shouldn't look too different. You had only minimal pieces of feedback about that last year, so feel free to give me anything more if you do want it to change after you do it again and decide if you want it to change at all. The only thing that is distinct if you've served on a jury before is this Tier 3, we stretched the numbers out in terms of the quantitative score. So instead of numbers 1 through 5, I think it goes up to, what is it, 30? Oh gosh, I can't remember now. But it's a maybe 40? There's a much bigger score. And the only reason for that is we're allowing you a little bit more nuance there. So you can, you know, really be thinking about, and we break down in that score sheet kind of what we mean by those 3 categories. So again, this is very similar to all of our grants. We score on 3 things primarily: artistic quality, community integration, and project feasibility. And quality usually comes from work samples, past presentation, what they put together. You know, the community integration can be shown through those questions that we raise about, you know, how are we bringing the community together? How is it reflective of the local community? Why Urbana? So really, like, how is it grounded in Urbana? These are Urbana grants. And then the last piece of project feasibility, this one will be a bit challenging this time because there's a lot of unknowns with COVID-19. So we're also more so evaluating our assessment of their ability to pull it off, right? And we can do that based on understanding their past performance, including their performance most recently here in 2020. You don't have the benefit of that final report, but that you will have, I believe, at least for, you had Pygmalions and you will have Folk and Roots on December. So if you hear that report, that could also give you a decision of whether or not you want to vote at that meeting or you want to let that simmer and then talk again in January. So you'll have some options, but I just want to make sure that you know the process so you don't feel any confusion. Do you have any questions about it? Pretty set? Well, good. I will be pinging you to serve on juries for our regular grants, our Tier 1 and 2 grants, I should say, not regular, but our Tier 1 and 2 grants inclusive of arts in the schools. Poet Laureate, Youth Poet Laureate, got some folks I've already pinged, but be sure to, you know that we typically have a commissioner or 2 on every jury we do for our arts program. That's a standard practice. So if you are really eager to serve on a jury this year, you can volunteer and email me or tell me now that you want to particularly serve in that capacity. We have 2 juries, so I only need 2 groups, and that means at most probably 4 commissioners to serve on the juries this year in Tier 1 and 2. And of course, if you have conflicts of interest because you collaborate or you're involved in a project, just as a reminder, you cannot be paid as a commissioner to participate in a grant project. You can give your time willingly, but you can't be paid and you can't apply yourselves. Bummer. You have to wait till you get off the commission, then submit all your grant proposals. Okay, I hope that answers any questions you have, but feel free to shoot me any others if they arise.
Okay.
I think that's all, at least for the Tier 3.
Okay, very good. Anybody have any announcements they want to make before we adjourn?
I think I would like to make one on Rachel's behalf. Does everybody know about your good news?
Oh, I
Dr.
don't know.
Storm.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
Yes,
Would
I
you like to
defended my
share it?
dissertation.
yeah,
We
All
can, we
right.
can say bravo.
Thanks.
Bravo.
Yes. Thank you so much.
that's
Very
a
good.
superhero name. Dr. Storm is a superhero name.
Well,
That's
Storm
right.
is a literal superhero, but I'm not as cool as her for sure.
You're our superhero hero for the commission.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Great.
I
Okay,
figure you
with
deserve it.
Okay, with that, I think we finished with all business, so we can adjourn.